And thanks for joining us here on PM Express. Tonight, a conversation with Alex Mould. We have a variety of issues that we are going to plow through tonight on the show in the next hour, from politics to the economy, of course, the NDC and the running mate. Do you know him? I'm pretty sure you do, but if you don't, he was the former boss of the GMPC and the MPA, and so his credibility and gravitas in the areas of oil and gas, I guess, says it all. Some of the things we'll talk about will revolve around that as well. I mean, since leaving office, he's become probably one of the most prolific writers, taking on the government on a lot of issues that some say sometimes that landed him in some controversy and trouble with the government. He recently caused controversy when he alleged that the 600 million stimulus package for small businesses could become a slush fund. Well, that's a serious one as well, that the opponents are taking him on for. We'll get into that. Now, the government has, in equal measure, you cannot take on the government and not expect that it will throw a few blows back your way. Well, they've attacked him in equal measure, attacking his tenure, whilst at GMPC in particular. A few things they've said that we'll put to him on the show as well. Now, but is his prolific writing a pitch to catch the eye of the man in your short, the flag bearer of the party, John Mahama, as he searches for his running mate for the 2020 elections? It's a question that most people monitoring him over the last 2 years and how prolific he's become in the public space always question. Well, tonight he's here. We'll ask that question on your behalf. Now, he's held senior positions, and I just realized this when I was on his page researching about him before I came on the show. And he has a whole website, by the way. This man is serious about branding his image. And on that site, I saw that he's held senior positions at Standard Chartered Bank, not only in Ghana, but in New York, and Union Bank of Switzerland, also in New York. And so the question automatically becomes, can his match what is his political and economic pedigree? Knowing that he's held all these senior positions in banks, all in Ghana, but abroad. And can he match this man in your picture here? He is the current Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. You know all about him and how he came onto the scene, also with a similar background, if you may, but he was at another bank, the Bank of Ghana. And so very interesting, I guess, dynamics they're already playing out, and some may already question. And so tonight we'll examine the politics, the economy, the running mate, the NDC, the elections, assessing this current government from a perspective of Alex Mould. And he's my guest tonight. You want to stay with us for all that and more here on PM Express right after the break. Thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. Again, when I have a guest in my studio, I am required, as according to the directives of the Health Ministry, that I wear my mask together with my guests. And so tonight, again, I wear a mask, this time with Alex Mould. And he will not lie to you that he's struggling, as I am. Mr. Mould, thanks for joining us on PM Express.
Thanks.
Good. I mean, this is the new normal, I guess.
I guess it's here to stay.
Struggling to get used to it. But I'm curious, Alex Mould, Ga, Ashanti, Fante, what is it? Because I've always wondered.
Well, my mother is Ashanti and my father is Ga, so you decide.
Ashanti? Yeah. And your mother is Ga?
No, my mother is Ashanti.
Your mother is Ashanti, your father is Ga?
Yeah.
So you are Ga?
Well, it depends. If I'm in Ashanti region, of course, Ashanti is only recognize your mother, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's a very interesting actual dynamic. Yeah. That's a very interesting dynamic. Which one do you feel more comfortable associating with?
I'm Ashanti. Okay. When I'm outside Accra. Okay. When I'm in Accra, I'm definitely a Ga.
Who raised you though?
Both. We lived in Accra. I was born in Takoradi, so we lived in Takoradi for a few years, then in Liberia, then in Accra.
Okay.
So most of my formative years have been in Accra, but I went to Tech, so I spent 5 years in Kumasi. We did 5 years, unlike most people who did 4 years, because we had 1 year tax force. People might forget about that one.
Toyota. Mbeshi. Okay, I was just trying to catch you there. I was trying to catch you there. See if you're really what you say you are. But let's get into
Accra.
Well, you're lucky we're on television, because I went to St. Thomas Aquinas. You know, there's a very terrible bad blood between the two.
No, it's only that
fight for rivalry.
With the St. Mary's girls. That's all.
Yes. So,
but we always
were you one of the bad ones?
Well, I was one of the good ones. Sister Mary Martha.
Are you sure?
I was in her good books.
Okay,
yes.
well, let's talk about your prolific writing and COVID-19. By the way, something you recently wrote that caught my attention. I mean, and I bring this up because it's such a live issue that many lives are dependent on this. You probably, as I said in the intro, one of the most prolific writers on national issues from within the NDC, on all issues, energy, politics, economy. You recently caused controversy when you alleged that the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, the agency charged with disbursing the 600 million cedis for small-scale businesses caught in the crisis of the COVID-19, loss of jobs, etc., it's not qualified to do the job. And you say that it could, quote, become a political slush fund.
Absolutely.
If the money is not given to financial institutions to disperse. How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, we got to go back a little and understand the genesis of the stimulus. As you remember, I mentioned somewhere a few weeks ago that the country needed about $1 billion to just put us in a holding pattern. Not really as a stimulus for growth, but just in a holding pattern to do a few things. One is to make sure that we can address the medical issues with regards to COVID. PPEs, testing, you know, all of that, paying the frontline workers. But the most important thing was you have to run it in a parallel form where you're also thinking about the economy. So how much money is going to be disbursed? And the research I did was to find out that most of the countries were spending 1% to 2% of their GDPs just for this purpose. And that's how come I came up with the $1 billion, because Ghana's GDP is about $60 billion, and roughly $1 billion should be able to tie us in. And you always have to do this with a peer analysis, looking at your peers. So I looked at India, I looked at South Africa, and that's where I realized, because we are quite similar in the socioeconomic perspective. So then our Honorable Minister of Finance came up and said he was going to take the money from Stabilization Fund, but that's only $219 million.
So your $1 billion is dollars, not cedis?
Oh, absolutely, billion was in dollars.
Because the 200 million amounts to $1 billion in
cedis. Yes, so just over $1 billion cedis, but that was not it. And you would see that they would need more money, and because this was a deep research I had done as to where the spending will go, and looking at our economy, the population, and the infection rates and all of that, it showed that. But most importantly, I was focused on the economy, exactly how we're going to put the economy on a hold, because what is going to happen was, I had predicted that there was going to be a lockdown, just like was happening in other countries, and the lockdown came a little later than we expected. The closure of the airports also came a little later than was expected. When you look at the lockdown, a few things were going to happen. Our economy is quite different from that of the US, the UK, and Europe, and other OECD countries. We're more like a developed country, like South Africa and like India, where a lot of our workers are paid by the day. They have to work that day to get paid. So if you lock down for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 2 months, how are these guys going to get paid? And secondly, other small businesses, as we know, the SME is the engine of our economy, and most of the people there, you know, hire between 10 and 20 people in the median. And how are these guys going to actually pay the salaries of these workers? So we have to look at a few things. What other countries were doing? Some of them were asking, they're doing furlough. Furlough meaning that you don't have to pay the statutory requirements like the SNIT and things like that, and the government will, by doing that, you release more cash flow to the companies, and they can spread that money a little longer and keep the workers in. Secondly, these companies needed soft loans or grants to be able to pay the workers, because the idea was here was not is how you can sustain economy, the the families of these workers, because most of them are single source funding, and you have one person in the family funding, and if he's not working, automatically they cannot put food on the table. The other thing you have to look at is about rent. How are they going to pay their rent when it comes due, and other things like that. So the idea was this money had to be made available very quickly. In fact, during the lockdown period, that is when exactly this money was supposed to be made. So it's delayed. That's one of my problems. We delayed in actually the execution of it. So it was nice when our finance minister came out and said, yes, they were going to put some money together. They said all the nice things, but then the execution, as usual with this government, has not been as good as one would think, or one would expect them to have it. And I expected them to come out with a criteria of how you qualify for these loans, who would be disbursed in the loans.
But the criteria is out now. It's on the website of the National Board for Small-Scale Industries.
Yes, but it's late. That's my other issue. But the second thing is that you have an institution like the National National Board of Small-Scale Industries, who over the years has only disbursed about 45 million Ghana cedis. That's their maximum amount they've disbursed. So they are not used
since it was set up, or
yes,
every year?
I think since it was set up. And they're not used to, they don't have what the banks have, what the financial institutions have. The financial institutions know these clients, so they can do the vetting better. They can actually say which clients are performing and which clients are non-performing. And there has to be a criteria exactly what that money is meant for. Is it meant for the workers? Is it meant to pay the rents and things like that, so that there's actual disbursement mechanisms to make sure that the money is spent where it's supposed to go. Otherwise, you will not be able to account for it. So the question is, does the National Board of Small-Scale, does it have a monitoring mechanism to be able to do it? You see, the financial institutions are set up for this.
They must certainly have.
They have underwriting standards. They definitely don't have. They have underwriting standards.
You check this.
Well, who regulates them?
No, but you say
the central bank regulates the financial institutions. Financial institutions are required to have credit approval processes. They're supposed to have underwriting standards, where they lend and where they don't lend. They're supposed to have a monitoring mechanism after the disbursement takes place to ensure that the money is used for the right purpose. I do not believe that the NBSSI has that mechanism.
That's one of the reasons why you say they're not.
And that's why I advocated for them to work with the financial institutions. You see, they can be a body that supervises this money and how it's disbursed and reports and things like that. But for them to be the actual entity doing the disbursements is what I was against. I hope they've changed that.
But you also said that the NBSSI is a bureaucratic institution controlled by politicians.
But it is. It's set up by politicians. That's what it's set up for. But it is not. It's not a commercial bank.
That does not disqualify them from distributing funds.
No, it doesn't. What disqualifies them from distributing funds is they are not set up to do that. And that was my issue. And if somebody is not set up...
It's curious to see they're not set up to do that, but you acknowledge that you say they've been distributing funds in the past, up until 40 million, you said.
That's what they reported.
That is something that they do.
Since inception. But the question is, who have they been disbursing these funds to? Are these SMEs?
To small-scale industries.
No, they are not the real SMEs that we're talking about. The real SMEs we're talking about are the people who actually are employing people. They are set up. And these are organizations that work with the Apex Bank, the rural banks. They work with financial institutions and the Bank of Ghana as well. So these are regulated organizations that disburse money. And they are monitored and regulated by Bank of Ghana, who supervises what they have done. So the Bank of Ghana can actually check to make sure that these disbursements have occurred. They can check to see what the non-performing loans are and the reasons why these are non-performing and things like that.
But they will be audited by the Auditor General.
When was the last time they were audited? I mean, if you look at the SOEs, if you take the big SOEs, Tamale Refining, when was the last time Tamale Refining had an audit report? And this is one of the largest organizations in Ghana. So, I mean, how about NBSSI? I mean,
you make the point that the 600 million can become a slush fund. That That is a serious allegation.
Yeah, but it can become a slush fund if the right mechanics and the right underwriting standards.
Slush fund for who?
Well, whoever controls the.
As in the government.
The government, whoever controls the NBSSI.
That is a serious allegation, though.
I said it could become. I didn't say it was.
But the way you put it in your statement said if it does not become a disbursement as controlled by financial institution.
Yes.
Then otherwise,
it could become. It could become.
So unless they change the formula now from it being under NBSSI, your conclusion is that if you maintain the structure currently, then it is becoming.
Well, then they would have to review exactly how NBSSI is regulated and who monitors them, and they will have to, like you say, have regular, periodic audits like the banks have. The central bank does a good job through its banking supervision department, where they come, they check your books, they check to make sure that your approval process, you went through the right approval process, governance structures, and that's what I'm more concerned about. But I have no issue with NBSI being the apex.
But they shouldn't be disbursing.
But disbursing then becomes a problem.
Because I wonder, I mean, if you go to the US, the Small Business Administration, which is headed by a member of President Trump's cabinet, is responsible.
That's the US.
Well, that's the US, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's responsible for distributing the $376 billion for small businesses.
Well, I mean, you have
it's
to
almost
check,
the same.
Well, you have to just check to make sure how they are organized and whether they have the same operations and
they have politicians heading it just like ours, appointed by Donald Trump. And the member of the cabinet, even worse.
The most important thing for me is transparency. Transparency and accountability. Once people are convinced that they've put the transparency in, there's a website that shows you who the loans have gone to, or you can ensure that, yes, these loans are going to real SMEs and not SMEs that have just been set up. They've met the criteria, and it's also an independent body working with them to do that. That independent body, in my view, are the financial institutions.
Let's talk about your assessment of how this government is handling the economy in the face of the crisis that we all know not only Ghana is facing, the world is facing. 1 billion CD from Stabilization Fund, 3 billion from banks, 600 million small business stimulus package. The finance minister.
That's the same thing as it.
Yes. The finance minister has managed to get 500 million debt freeze. He is talking with
from the bilateral
thing. He's talking with the rest of the continent to get a debt standstill for us as a country and for the rest of the continent as well. You must be impressed.
And recently, even China has come up. Well, these things.
You must be impressed with the way government is handling the crisis, the economic crisis that the COVID-19 has brought on.
You know, let's put things in perspective. All countries who are in this problem with us are looking to ensure that, one, they do not unduly burden the countries that they work with. And a lot of these countries give us these loans because of the trade that we do with them. So yes, they came up with their packages, and then they had discussions with the countries like Ghana. China is currently doing one right now, talking to or coming up with what it's going to do to the 14 countries in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, that it has loans to see how it can defer some of the loan payments. So these are, I wouldn't say initiatives by the government themselves, but yes, the governments are involved in these discussions. These are initiatives by the countries that they intend doing that. And this is because the IMF and the World Bank have been speaking to these countries, because at the end, if these countries do not come up with some sort of debt repayment deferment, the IMF we will all fall on the IMF to do that. So these discussions are at a very high level. And yes, it is important that our finance minister is involved in all of these discussions.
He's almost leading this with his counterpart from South Africa. Well, you must give the man some credit.
No, you definitely will give him credit, but this is not his initiative. It's an initiative by the international organizations, and they've called these countries in. And Ghana is one of the highly indebted countries. You see, we will be called in because we have a lot of debt to these countries. And as such, our profile, we are high on the profile with them. And that is why we're called in. We're not called in because we have the best finance minister. We are called in because our debt can affect the other countries, and that is why they're calling us in.
At least to convince the banks to give out 3 billion CD worth of loans, that must have the banks must first have confidence in the government to agree to do that.
Well, let's put this into perspective.
That is a vote of confidence.
I have been speaking to all the banks.
That is a vote of confidence.
I
in
agree.
The government.
I mean, first of all, the banks have to come in. And just like these international organizations, the multinationals and the bilaterals who we owe money, it's prudent for them to lead to ensure that basically we can restructure the debt. And if we don't restructure the debt, we will fail. And if we fail, they have to write off some of the debt. So the same thing with the banks. The banks also realize that if they do not take a proactive approach, it's very likely that most of these companies are going to default.
But this is a government initiative,
well,
not the other way around.
It's not really a government. It is a private.
The government went to the banks, make it picture them. The banks agreed. We trust you.
The banks.
We trust your economy.
I can assure you that
so
the Banking Association of Ghana definitely led this and had a discussion with the Minister of Finance. And yes, the Minister of Finance, and the central bank, who are in direct contact with all these banks because they fund the economy, will have to have a discussion.
The information out there publicly that we know of doesn't seem to agree with what you're saying, that the banks that initiated on the government side has clearly, including the president himself.
There is always politics, and there's always what is real. What is real is that if
the banks have told you that
if you are owner of a bank, and most of these companies owe you, and most of these companies are owed by the government, you have to go and talk to the government. And this is something that, like I said, it's a partnership between government and the banks to ensure that, yes, money will be made available. The real question I have is, if money is going to be made available by these banks, what sort of risk sharing is the government and the banks, have they put in place to be able to make this work? I don't think that has been settled yet, and that is why most of the money, in fact, no money has really been dispersed. There has to be an agreement as to exactly how we're going to share the risk. If the banks are going to put 3 billion Ghana cedis at stake and losses occurs, who takes the first hit? These are kind of the conversations that I had, and you know, I know this because I did run Standard Chartered Bank, and I have worked with the government in various areas when we structured the Tema Oil Refinery bond to take Tema Oil Refinery out, when we restructured the VRA debt and also the Ghana Telecom debt. I was involved in all of this. So these are discussions that I had at a very high level. But of course, politicians will take credit for it, and they should. I would.
That's being honest. I like that. Do you at least agree that this is a vote of confidence in the government management of the economy?
Well, I think the government has done some good things in this COVID.
Such as?
But they have they have been late in doing it. The roadmap of how you handle the COVID was written because we had countries like China, Italy, Spain. We had good practice and bad practice. So when I said we were able to sit back and actually decipher what was the good practice that we could migrate here. One of the good practices is you lock down quickly. Another good practice is you close your borders quickly. That we failed to do it very quickly. And I would say if we had done it 1 or 2 weeks before, we definitely would have had a better result. The next thing is looking at how you get your PPEs and how you get your medical equipment, and also how you get money to pay all these medical staff, how you upskill the nurses, you know, and the doctors to be able to treat COVID, how you get all the ventilators and all the equipment.
You said they've done some good things, such as?
I mean, all these things are good things they've done, but the problem is that they did them late. That's the only issue. And because there's a roadmap, if they hadn't followed the roadmap, which was set already by most of these countries, then they would have done bad things. But yes, you know, and you must say that one of the things that His Excellency John Mahama has been doing is advising. He's been saying that we need to do certain things. We need to relieve people of the bills, like utility bills. So yes, I think the president has been listening to John Mahama in some of these areas, and he's been executing them. And that is why he's been doing certain good things.
Let's talk about your area of expertise, really.
Which is?
Energy.
Is it?
I mean, even you, with the knowledge you have in that sector, must sympathize with the government on the massive hit this economy has and will take because of the impact of COVID-19 on oil and gas industry, right?
Yes.
World crude prices crashed. Government will register a shortfall in crude oil receipts. The finance minister estimates 5.6 billion cedis. You must certainly sympathize with government on this.
No, you definitely will sympathize. I'm a patriot and I'm a Ghanaian, so it's affecting us. It's not affecting government. It's affecting everybody in this country. And I did a paper weeks before government came up with what the shortfall is, exactly how our deficit is going to widen to something close to 30 billion from 18 billion. And I focus on areas like you've mentioned, our oil and gas revenues from our oil exports. But at the same time, I said that there was some good news because the fuel prices were going to come down. And when fuel prices come down, we expect a ripple effect in the fact that transportation costs will come down, goods will come down.
Have you seen the ripple effect?
No, actually, it's the reverse. The latest inflation numbers, our local domestic inflation, goods inflation, went up, and our foreign import inflation actually stayed flat. And
many people pulled down to the lockdown, the 3-week lockdown period, where goods were not moving, so then it added a bit more supply and demand.
I think it was inflation. Yeah, there were people took advantage of that. Yes. But one of the things I also said was it was important that government look to see how we could ensure that the supply chain of ensuring that goods were coming from the hinterland into the cities remained, because we could deploy the army and the police to ensure that we could bring these goods into the country, because it was locked down. Nobody could do that. And this was an area that I advised that maybe we could have done much better in ensuring that we had goods brought into the cities so that we don't feel the effect of inflation.
Okay. I'm going to take a break. When I return, I'm going to go into politics a bit with Alex Mould. We've talked about the economy, we've talked about energy. I'm curious to hear his views on politics, his views on the NDC, his views on the elections. I haven't heard much of that from him over the years. Last 3 years since he left office as a technocrat at the GMPC. And so I'm very curious to spend the next few minutes teasing his political acumen, as they say. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. My guest in the studio is Alex Mould. He is a former GMPC and MPA boss during the John Mahama administration. He'd been dating way back before then. And to that point, I return to. Some say you're a technocrat. Are you a politician too?
Oh, well, I think you have to put things in perspective. I've worked most of my life in the finance industry, in commercial banking and corporate banking, and in the energy sector. I started in the energy sector at GMPC after school. So, yes, and I've been in leadership positions, since my New York days to here, which spans over 25 years. And so it depends on who I'm talking to. But yes, we all politicians, one way or the other. I mean, once you get to the C-suite in any organization, you...
Can I qualify that?
You are working in politics.
Are you a partisan politician?
Well, I have strong beliefs and strong values, and it resonates more with one party than the other.
Which one?
With the NDC, of course. I have more social democratic beliefs, and I believe that we definitely should help every citizen at least get the basics and things like that. We should look after our aged. We should ensure that we have a welfare system to take care of things like that. So yes, I am. But at the same time, I'm a business person. I've been helping organizations over the years when I was in the banking sector. So I understand business very well. I have invested a lot as a stakeholder in various businesses while at the bank. So I understand how the economy runs. I worked with a lot of leaders in the Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Ghana. And more importantly, I have worked with the main industry that is the backbone of the economy, be it in the energy sector, in telecoms, in local corporates.
Fair to say you're more of a technocrat than a partisan politician?
Well,
fair to say?
I don't know what that means when you say partisan politician. I stand for the truth. I'm a patriot, first and foremost. I stand for the truth. I stand for making sure that we are fair, things are transparent, and we do the right things. Okay. So I don't know where that puts me.
NDC card-bearing member?
Absolutely.
Since?
Since maybe 2008.
Okay, that is a fair bit, right? Regularly being consistent.
Yes, absolutely.
Are you interested in being a running mate for John Dramani Mahama?
Well, I think you have to put things in perspective there. I am working with my party, and any position my party wants me to help them in, I am prepared to do that. I've worked with them from the transition team in 2009 to working at the Ministry of Energy with the minister at NPA, at GMPC. I am working with the party for us to develop our structures, develop the organization, make it more fit for purpose and ready for the election. And that is what my job is. So any role that the party deems based on my skill set and my background, I am prepared to assist in it.
Including the vice presidential slot?
Including the vice presidential, yes.
Okay. So if you are nominated, John Mahama does so, this is something that you embrace?
Well, I think there's a process that goes. The flag bearer has to work with the functional executive of the party in consultation with the elders, come up with the criteria and choose it. And yes, if they call me and nominate me, and I pass the criteria, I definitely will accept.
Do you think you pass the criteria?
I don't know what the criteria is. I mean, it hasn't. Nobody has called me to explain it to me yet. I don't know what it is. Talking
about criteria, what qualities in a running mate would you like to see, or will best suited for the NDC as it seeks to win back power?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to look at what the flag bearer is looking for, and somebody who he can trust, somebody who can be his confidant, somebody who can assist him in various areas, complement him, and also take leadership in certain areas. So I think that's going to be the main criteria.
Does John Mahama trust you?
I think he trusts me. He wouldn't have offered me.
You're not sure?
He would have offered me the largest, corporate job in the public sector.
Arguably.
Yeah, well, it is. There's no other.
I don't know how you're measuring that, though. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Arguably.
You measure in corporate world. We measure with revenue and profitability. So yes, he wouldn't have charged me with that if he did not trust me, because this is a job that, it can make or break the country.
I mean, is that the only basis to say that John Mahama trusts you? Because your fair criteria, the man must trust you.
He must trust you.
The only basis for you to say he trusts me is because he appointed to GMPC.
Well, he appointed me there and he kept me there, and I did a good job, and I reported.
But that's almost like keeping you at arm's length, because GMPC, you don't deal with the president at all. Almost.
Well, you don't really have to deal with the president, but it is a very big part of the economy that you are dealing with cabinet. You're dealing with, and he's the head of cabinet, so you're dealing with the president.
Did you deal with him when you were in GMPC?
Directly? Not directly, because I was dealing with my minister. My minister deals with the president. I'm not a CEO that bypasses my minister to go to see the president.
But trust is a very personal, intimate word.
Yeah, it is. You have to trust the person. You have to trust his values.
But that's not what you describe for me. Is not intimacy. If you're dealing with your minister and not with the man who you say trusts you, then intimacy is.
Well, I'm sure he had his mechanisms to evaluate everybody who he had been given a position, and you wouldn't remain in that position if you were not trusted. And the trust comes from the fact that you get feedback from all the stakeholders that you deal with, and that trust builds over time.
So where we stand currently, what's your personal relationship with the man John Mahama, now in opposition as a leader of your party? Well,
as you know, I mean, I was part of the team that got John Mahama re-elected as the flag bearer of the nation. So he asked me to be part of that team.
When you say you were part of the team, what specifically did you do?
Fundraising and also in operations and strategy.
For him?
for him.
Okay. I mean, you brought in quite a sizable amount of money.
That's the job.
Okay. And in that role, you dealt with him personally?
Absolutely, personally.
Okay. Is it possible that possibly may be more of a factor in you feeling his confidence and trust than GMPC?
No, you can tell if somebody trusts you. You know, he asks your opinion.
How can you tell, though? I mean, because beyond
he trusts your opinion. He trusts things that you're telling him. He can bounce things off you. So that is how you build trust. When you work with somebody and the person consistently gives you the right information, or the person consistently helps you in decisions, you should trust the person.
You speak as if you really paid your due to John Mahama.
It's not to John Mahama, it is to the party. And yes, he was the leader of the party, you know, for a long time that I was working with the party. And yes, as a leader, you will have some criteria of how you evaluate the performance of people. And one of them, for me, is trust. Trust is very important to me.
Why would you want to be? You're a successful man. Got Standard Chartered, Bank of Switzerland, GMPC, NPA. Why do you want to be a vice president of this republic?
Well, it's not wanting to be a vice president. The idea here is why do I want to help my party? And I want to help my party because I'm very passionate about things in this country. I'm passionate about people knowing the truth. I'm passionate about us forging a path for this country that you know, we haven't forged for a while. I believe that the country has been derailed in the last few years, where people now take state capture, for example, to be a norm. Is like we can use our political positions to influence the outcome of tenders, the outcome of agreements in favor of private sector as against to the state. And for me, I think it's important that we go back to our roots. We try and understand and forge ahead a path that is important for us to continue. Otherwise, the country will be derailed.
You raised that point, and I cast a whole host of individuals whose name have been thrown out there.
By whom?
By people who speculate. And politics...
There are speculators in this business?
Yes, so politics, yes. A fair bit of people speculate.
Is this from the media side?
From the media side.
Mainly from the media, right?
Mainly from the media, but from
the media have to sell. They have to sell, right?
Yeah, we do. I mean, people from your own party have names in your head.
Which people have you spoken to?
It's good you mentioned the media. What we do also is to sound off people. We have sources in your party.
You have sources,
they throw
right?
names out there. I'm sure you threw it. Your name was thrown in the hat as well.
By whom?
By a lot of people. I have as well. You've confirmed that tonight that you are interested in that position, and so
being interested doesn't mean your name has been thrown in.
Oh yeah, I'm saying the speculators.
Okay.
But to the point, many of these names have been thrown out there not by John Mahama or his people, but by people close to him, etc. Kwesi Boche, among others, right? Tough people who've served the party years. Some say they have more gravitas in the party. They've contributed blood, sweat, and toil many more years than you have.
And they told you this?
Well, I know because of their history.
Okay, so you're speculating.
From monitoring.
You're speculating what they would say.
I said speculators.
Okay.
And my question to you is, among this field, definitely, Alex Mould won't be the only person being considered. Definitely. You won't deny that, correct?
I wouldn't know.
Good.
I wouldn't know if even I am being considered.
It begs the question. Among this field, why would John Mahama settle on Alex Mould, who was a GMPC and MPA? Before then, was in private practice.
Yeah.
Why would he do that?
I don't know why he would do that.
Especially when you're going to an election where the grassroots mobilization would be absolutely key. Because in 2016, you lost primarily because your people didn't show up. Why would Alex Mould? I'm talking politics here.
Yeah.
Pure politics.
Well, the bottom line is...
Why would Alex Mould be the one?
Well, the bottom line is that if you are looking for somebody who is going to complement you, you have to make sure that, yes, that person is acceptable to the various factions of the party.
Are you acceptable?
I don't know. And I don't know whether I'll be considered. But All I'm saying is that these are the criteria you have to choose.
Do you want to be considered?
Of course I would like to be considered. I believe I bring to the table quite a lot. I have a background and I have a skill set that can help. Over the years I have built my leadership capabilities. I have excelled in everywhere I have been, whether it's Standard Chartered Bank, whether it's at the NPA or the GMPC. I have transformed organizations. I've worked at board levels in multinational companies and also public companies.
Will the grassroots accept you?
I'm sure if the party accepts you, the grassroots would accept you. I mean, if the party executives accept you, the grassroots will accept you, because in the end, they will have to sell you to the grassroots.
Do you have any experience in campaigning?
Yes, I have, but you see, let's put things into perspective. Which campaigning are you talking? Are you talking about standing on the podium and campaigning, or because campaigning has
electioneering?
Yes, it has various facets. You have the strategy, putting together the strategy. You have putting together the execution team, being part of the execution team. You have mobilizing the door-to-door, grassroots level. You have fundraising, which is a huge part. So there are various facets of it. And yes, I've been involved in many of these. I'm also, advocating for the adoption that His Excellency John Mahama launched last year, that, we adopt branches. And I'm working with a number of people to see how we can encourage more of our people to adopt branches. And when you adopt a branch, it's not just
have you
financially.
Adopted branches yourself?
Yes, I have 3 constituencies in the Ashanti region, and they have multiple branches there. I do meet with the executive, and we strategize, and we help them with leadership issues as well. So it's not only money, but it's helping them with leadership, understanding how they're going about their work. So it's more building the organization and building the execution team, and also making sure that you have the right people in the right place.
What do you say to those who look at your tenure at GMPC and say, you did not help the party enough when you were in that position?
Well, it depends on who has been saying this. I mean,
have you had this before?
Well,
I'm pretty sure you
hear certain bits, especially on social media,
yes.
And you don't know who are actually the ones backing these people in social media.
This is an opportunity to address
because I have never really heard it from the party itself. To help the party is to ensure that you do the right job. You have the right governance in place, and you do the right things to make sure that what you have been put there for, you do it. So it depends on what the objectives were. It depends on what your key performance indicators were, what they asked you to do. And that's the only way you can judge whether somebody did or did not do what he was expected to do.
This is a silly one, but I need to ask this because it's politics. You are talking key performance indicators with a foot soldier.
Yes.
Seriously,
you can break it down to him.
You're talking key performance indicators with the foot soldier.
Yes, you can break it down to him in his language and how he understands it. You can break it down to him and tell him it's about creating jobs. It's about making sure that we have the right people in the right places, giving people opportunities. So if he wants an opportunity in your organization and his skill set doesn't fit, you can ask him, you can call another CEO somewhere, you can ask them to look at that. And that is how you help. You just do not fill the places with people who do not qualify.
That is how you kill your political career in a political party.
Well, that's what you. I think that's what you think, but I don't think that's right. It's making.
But is that what you did when you're in a GMPC? That you were so for the truth and a patriot, that NDC folks may come to you and you say, well, I looked at your qualifications and GMPC is not a place for you.
Who said that?
I'm just asking. Because you mentioned that if somebody comes to you, and your skill set doesn't sit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for geologists and the person is, he's done mathematics or something like that, he definitely cannot fit into the organization. But you can help him. You can ask him if he really is interested in this. You go to school and we see how we can get scholarships for you to do those things. And this is for the youth in general. So I have been mentoring a lot of youth. I have been talking to them about their careers, and I've been trying to understand what the challenges they have been facing, because I was in that position when I was young. I had challenges as well. So I understand what they're going through. And some people need to change your career. If you want to do something, you have to prepare yourself for it. You just don't expect them to open the door, put you in there. Otherwise, you'll be put in, you know, a square peg in a round hole.
Are you a match for Dr. Bawumia?
Am I a match?
Yes.
In what way? Are we competing?
Yes, if you want to become the vice president, if your party wins and selects you, you're going to clearly in that position, he's your match if you get a nod.
Yeah, but I mean, his job
in terms of his skill set.
What skill set?
And his expertise. As an economist par excellence, I may say.
I see.
Are you a match for him?
Well, I think first of all.
And going into an election, remember, if that is going to come.
First of all, you have to look at, you know, what I bring to the table.
And what he brings to the table.
Yeah, and what he brings to the table, and what role he's supposed to play as the vice president, and what role whoever is the vice president will have to play. Definitely, if you look at my pedigree, I have run organizations. I have been at the helm of running profitable organizations. Standard Chartered Bank is an international organization worldwide. And I definitely did a good job there. I moved to NPA, which was a more bureaucratic organization, and I changed it into a high-performing organization. And when I went to GMPC, I did the same. I changed GMPC to become more of a project-led development organization. So it depends on what the role is and what skill sets you bring. But I don't think I'm in competition with Bawumia at all.
If you become, you will be. If you become the running mate, you will be in competition with him. Because December 7 is about competition. Whilst JM is competing for the face on the ballot with Nado, you'll be competing with your counterpart if you get a nod in Dr. Bawumia.
Let's put it this way. My pedigree shows that I have been able to manage organizations. I've been able to deliver high-performing organizations.
But you haven't categorically.
And my job is...
One of the key attributes of politicians is the ability to be absolutely profound in their statement of their capabilities and abilities. You haven't stated for me that boot for boot, as Mahmoud Bawumia will say, Kambu for Kambu, when it comes to this grind of politics, you can match up with him and anybody else.
Well, it's not politics. It's about your ability to deliver. Yeah. So it's not only on politics, it's your ability to deliver.
And
if you're talking about the economy, of course I can deliver on the economy. If you're talking about energy, I can deliver on energy. If you're talking about any area, whether it's trade, whether it's industry, whether it's infrastructure, because I have worked in these areas before. This is not, you know, something, this is not, would I be able to do it? I have pedigree that shares exactly what I have done in the past.
You have started by saying that you're probably the most prolific writer in the NDC on national issues, and because of the number of articles you write and the frequency of them, aren't you coming across? Some say that's a pitch. That's a pitch to catch the eye of John Mahama. Aren't you coming across as...
Some say that.
Well, somebody look at that.
Why would I want to catch the reason?
You don't want to catch the eye of John
The
Mahama.
reason why I am doing this is very simple. There's a lot of things going on in the country and people do not understand them. And it is important that we bring clarity on these very issues. We've talked about things like ACA, exactly what's going on with regards to state capture. We talked about PDS, and we raised the issues, the intricate issues, because these things are very, very technical and detailed. And if you don't break it down, people would understand it. And that is what I've been trying to do. I have not been trying to catch anybody's eye. I already have the eye of all the people who I've been working with. Because
this is not an attempt to sell your candidature to John Mahama.
No, there's no need to do it. He knows what I do. He knows that I deliver with anything that I am given. So there's no reason to sell to him.
What would you say to those who look at that and say, he's selling himself, and he's probably, this is desperation for the position?
Well, everybody is entitled to their opinions. The real question is, you know, what exactly am I doing? And once I know what I'm doing and I'm happy with it, that's all that matters. I don't really mind about what people's opinions are. Feedback I get from social media, from what I do, people congratulating me in explaining things to them that they wouldn't have understood, or bringing to light certain issues. And for me, that is enough for me.
Would you be disappointed if John Mahama announces tomorrow and you're not the man he chooses?
No, absolutely not. Because I will be helping the party in one way or the other. The vice presidency is not, the end of the, what you can do for the party. There are other areas you can help the party. You can be on boards. You can be you can actually stand for a position in the party itself as a member of the FE, the functional executive. You can be a CEO. You can be a minister. You can be deputy. You can be anything the party wants you to do, and you don't have to worry whether they're going to choose you or not, because the skill set I have, if I'm not chosen by the party to do anything to help them directly, I'll be doing things to help them indirectly.
Okay. Some in your party, just last week, Mahama Yariga was on the same show,
okay,
and made the point that as far as he's concerned, with 5 months to go to the elections, he believes there's been a delay in the outdooring or naming of a running mate. Do you share that view?
I don't share that view, and I don't think it's actually true, because I believe our history is that we have never brought out the vice president candidate very early. Most times it's around July, August that we bring him out. So I don't think it's really true. But there may be reasons why Yariga is thinking about that, and I leave that with him.
Personally, you don't think there's a delay?
No, I don't think there's a delay. What is very important for the party? But
there are definitely advantages.
No, let me tell you what's important for the party. What's important for the party as an organization is you have your flag bearer, you have your CEO. You also have a board, the Council of Elders, and you have a functional team that works with the CEO, which is the functional executive. Okay? The real job here is to get elected. That means that you have to have a strategy that you need to cascade all the way down to the branches. That is the work. The work is not the vice president. The work is, how is this being done? If the president believes that he needs an assistant, he needs a help by somebody who he wants to work with him, then he can bring the vice president. But if he is confident that the structure he has and the team he has and how they're executing the strategy is okay, there is absolutely no need for him to rush and bring in a vice president. That is my view. And I think he's doing the right thing. He's taking his time and he's analyzing exactly who he can partner with. And whatever criteria he is going to choose, he's taking his time to do that. I don't think he should be rushed by the media, like yourselves, by anybody who doesn't understand what his strategy is. He has a core team around him. He must have explained exactly what he wants, how he's going to go about it. And he has time. There is no rush. The MPP don't have a presidential candidate. The MPP don't have a vice president candidate. The MPP don't have parliamentary candidates. Yet, I haven't heard the media talking about it.
Yeah. So that is Alex Mould, and I'm grateful that you joined us as we approach the end of that phase where we might hear John Mahama announce a candidate to run with him in the elections. I'm grateful that you joined
by
me.
November, at least by November.
But that's Alex Mould, is a former GMPC chief executive. My name is Evan Spencer. Enjoy the rest of your evening.